Over 5 years ago, 3rd of March 2020, at the same time as the very early stages of the COVID-19 pandemic were being discussed in the chamber, in the rooms in Parliament, we discussed the real possibility of a rise in post-infectious ME following the coronavirus. On that day, with others, I called for an urgent need for proper research investment. Despite these 5 years, despite this pandemic, despite 1.9 million people in the UK now living with long COVID, despite how the pandemic has shone a spotlight on all of those with ME, in government and among research funders, nothing has changed. Rather, there has been a singular lack of care shown to these millions of people. Over 5 years, scientists have made extraordinary breakthroughs in understanding the new illness of COVID-19. We now know better its genetics and how to treat it. In ME research, we now know that 400,000 people in the UK have ME symptoms, far larger than the previous estimate of 250,000. We know that people with ME are more likely to be female, older, and experience socioeconomic deprivation. And we know that there are hundreds of blood molecules and skeletal muscle properties that are different on average between people with ME and others. We know that these differences are not due to physical inactivity. We know that there are genetic signals that are present in both the UK and the US long COVID populations, and that these signals overlap with those for ME. Genetics has told us that long COVID and ME are neither identical nor entirely different. There are genetic factors that are common to both ME and long COVID, so to some extent these diseases do run in families. We have nearly completed analyses in our Decode ME genetic project and will share findings with you and everyone else as soon as possible. We know that there is extreme geographical variation in rates of ME diagnosis, with non-white communities receiving about 10 to 20% of diagnoses of white people, a situation that is worse than for other diseases. If you're a young male, you're 50 times less likely to be diagnosed with ME than an older female. If ME were a disease of young males, would you agree with me that far greater care, funding, and attention would have been paid previously to this awful disease? In the last 5 years, we've learned that graded exercise therapy and cognitive behavioral therapies, two previously promoted treatments, are harmful and ineffective, respectively, for people with ME. We've learned that there are no treatments that substantially improve the lives of people with ME. The only change that improves their lives is reducing work. Bear this in mind as you discuss the government's back to work plan. What I've learned over the last 5 years is that there is no strategy for funding ME or long COVID research. Despite UKRI spending nearly £6 billion each year, less than 0.03%, £8 million, of this has been spent on ME. In the meantime, much rarer diseases receive hundreds of millions in funding. It breaks my heart that I have to recommend to young scientists that they do not build a career in ME research, for there is no funding in it. And what I've learned from the UKRI is that apparently it's our fault. It's the scientists' fault that there is so little research investment. I'm told that our research grant proposals don't meet the mark. The disease is too complex, its symptoms too heterogeneous. My view is that ME and long COVID research turns in a vicious cycle, not able to build on previous research foundations to propose future experiments. The total economic burden of ME in the UK is estimated at over £3.3 billion each year. If 1% of this, £33 million, were to be spent on ME research annually, then to break even, it would only need us, scientists, to develop approaches that return 1% of people with ME back to economic productivity. Given the UK's history of even greater returns on scientific investment, the likelihood is that yet more people would be returned to the workplace. So that's what I've learned over the last 5 years. Science is doing all that it can to help millions of people around the world with these terrible diseases. What they now need from you, from MPs, is true leadership. Break the current vicious funding cycle and ensure that all people with ME receive the proper care and diagnoses they deserve.